Okay, so today we are going to be talking about Proven Guilty, which is book 8 of the Dresden Files. So I'll have it on screen. It's not going to stay on screen the whole review, though. I did read this one digitally, but I loved it. At first, I was really nervous. This is going to be spoiler, by the way. I have a spoiler-free reading vlog that was posted on Thursday, so you can check that out if you want spoiler-free, but we're talking spoilers. We're getting into the book. So I was pretty nervous about this at the beginning because the first half of the book I enjoyed. I mean, I thought it was good, but it was not. Usually every Dresden book, by the halfway point, I have 3 things that I want to openly gush about. And in this one, I was enjoying myself, but there was nothing really making it amazing. But the second half, I loved this book by the end, with some hiccups, with some road bumps, but I'll leave that for the end. So this book opens up with a trial of a 16-year-old and an execution of the 16-year-old. Great way to open the book with a little bit of, oh my goodness, what are we getting into? Every Dresden opening is really, really strong, but this one also reminds us of who the White Council really is, which is awesome for tying it back into the end of the book, which, again, you're watching a spoiler video, when they have to stand on that blood splatter. They have to stand on that blood stain. Not splatter. The splatter has been cleaned up by now, but the blood stain that they haven't fully gotten out of the floor, they have to stand there during Molly's trial. So I love how it ties back in. It ties back in for why Harry doesn't fully trust the White Council and why it's reminding us, the readers, when this comes up, when Molly does have to go to the council, and I realize I'm getting ahead of myself, when Molly does have to go to the White Council at the end of the book, and when Harry points out to us, this is where we are, this is what's going on here, we, the readers, don't have to remember from books ago why maybe this isn't going to be ideal. In this book, we have this vivid imagery from the beginning, so we know, oh no, this is not, they're not going to have mercy on her. Great for showing how difficult this decision is for Harry, great for reminding us so that we can be right there with him and agree that it's difficult, and great for just kind of tying things back together when, once again, we bring a teenager, someone who is still so young and so inexperienced and doesn't fully understand even what's going on with their own powers, how they don't get one might argue, not a fair justice. So the book opens up with Molly calling Harry supposedly drunk from prison, doesn't want to call her parents, only has the one phone call, all this stuff, and Harry, he could tell something's not honest about what you're asking me. This shouldn't be how the phone call thing works, and a lot of factors here. And she's like, just do it, please. Just, can you just do it? So Harry, the dope, just does it. So Harry goes, and it turns out that it's Molly's boyfriend, so she helps them out, and then he brings Molly home, and he essentially is like, listen, I did my part. You asked me to do more than I was comfortable with. Now it's your part. Do what you're not comfortable with. Go home. See your parents. And I loved that because while there are so many things that Harry does that I'm like, sir, like, you should have called Michael. Don't just go to the prison because she said, I don't want to call my parents, though. Just call Michael. You didn't. Okay, fine. But you still got the girl to Michael and Charity, so good job, Harry. Even though there are times where he makes decisions that I'm like, sir, his heart is always right. He's always trying to do what's right by people. And that's absolutely what he did, bringing her home and being like, you have to face your family. You cannot keep doing this way. So I loved this scene where, the whole family comes rushing out. They're so excited to see her. You can tell how much love is in the house. And while I sympathize with Molly about, her parents they're very strict and they have this idea of what they want Molly to be, the path they want Molly to go on, and she has rebelled. She does not want this life. And I love Molly's character, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. I love her character. I also love that while we can see how Molly is, pushing away from her family and pushing away from, the strictness of the household, that there's so much love in that house, and that the scene, for instance, with Michael when he sees Charity and he just wants to hold her and he's just so relieved to see her, the kindness and just the unrestrained love that comes off of him in that scene is so beautiful. And you can also see the tension between Molly and Charity, while there's no room for guessing in this book if Charity too loves Molly. That doesn't change the fact that there's a lot of tension. It doesn't change the fact that you have two people who are butting heads and who have really different ideas of where Molly's life should go, and that causes a lot of friction between the two of them. I love that honest representation of a mother-daughter, things are complicated sort of relationship, but without any fear of, or without any questioning of how much love is in that home or how much devotion Charity has to her children. Charity was the star of this book for me, and Molly was the secondary star. Honestly, I love, yeah. So we have Splattercon, which is this horror convention that's going on, and with that we have, oh shucks, what was Molly's boyfriend's name? Narwhal. What? Norton? What was his name? Nelson! His name's Nelson. I had to find him in the ebook, whatever. So anyway, there's this murder that's happened at Splattercon, and it turns out that it's these spirits that feed off of fear. So they're taking the form of some horror movie characters at Splattercon. It's pretty fun. One thing that I wasn't entirely sure about what exactly happened was when Harry was trying to figure out who the summoner was, and he landed on Molly. He decided that it must be Molly, and I bought into that pretty easily. I was like, okay, yeah, Molly, she did it. And it seems like throughout the book, that's what I meant to believe, but there was also a line that Harry said at one point. I wrote it down, or like I made note of it. I can't find the note, but it's something along the lines of Molly was, as I understand it, Molly was being used as an anchor point, but she herself wasn't the summoner. If you want to clarify that for me in the comments, I would be grateful, but that's what I got from what exactly was going. Like, I know Molly was the one giving her friends the nightmares and altering their mind so that they would get off drugs, but I don't think she was actually the summoner, even though I kind of thought she was for a bit there in the book. Anyway, like I said, I love Charity in this book. I think that she played the perfect role, and one of my favorite things about these books is how the characters' flaws are just put out there. You know, they're unabashedly there. No one has to be the perfect hero. Nobody has to be the perfect character. Everyone everyone feels like a human trying to make it through life, and their interactions feel like humans trying to give each other enough grace to make it through life together. And I just really, really love that about these books. Charity is a flawed character that I root for so much. Once we found out about her history with magic and why she was strangling Molly, trying to keep her from going down that same path, from having that the same situations that she herself got into, and where that fear was coming from, and that whole conversation where she acknowledged, by trying to force my daughter out of this, I ended up pushing her to it and realizing where she failed, but that doesn't change her steadfastness. That doesn't change her love. That doesn't change the fact that she would do anything for this kid. It was a great conversation with Harry. I loved that she kind of roundaboutly apologized to Harry, but not actually doing it. And when Harry was like, "Are you apologizing to me?" And she goes, "My character isn't that strong," or something like that. I loved that scene because I think if she had a heart-to-heart so strong, because there's so much bad blood, there's so much beef there, mostly her directed at Harry, understandably. Poor sweet Michael. Michael's such a good egg. He's so sweet. And his best friend is Harry. And Michael's all the time getting in danger because of him. So I understand her not feeling perfect around Harry. I mean, I have the benefit of being the reader, so I know that Harry's intentions are great, but I understand her grudge, and I I think that if she had a heart-to-heart that was this great, and then it ended on some extravagant apology and then them reconciling and becoming friends, it would just be too much. So the fact that she can recognize her weaknesses and try to move forward, but she can't quite humble herself to that point is just very human. It just feels so... I just love the character work in these books. But on top of that, she's also, she makes all of Michael's armor. She is the one that Michael trains with day in and day out, so she's strong. She is strong. She knows how to fight. She can be a protector. She can hold her own, and she can go in after her daughter. And I loved the scene when Harry was putting the goop on his eyes and on Thomas's eyes and on Murphy's eyes, and then Charity just takes the goop, whatever it was, and puts it on her eyes too. And Harry's like, no, you're not coming. And she's like, I'm going to get my daughter. Stop me. Go ahead, try. Try and stop me. I'm going for my daughter. I really love Charity's characterization. Someone who has not done the mothering thing perfectly, but that doesn't change the fact that she will do anything to get her daughter back. She will do anything to protect her child. I love the way her steadfastness is portrayed, and Michael's steadfastness, unwavering parental love, unwavering faith. I love the way these characters are depicted. Someone commented on my vlog saying that this whole family is their favorite character of the book, and I'm just gonna steal that. That's mine now. This whole family is my favorite character of this series. Speaking of, Michael too, though he didn't have a lot of page time, he was an excellent presence in the book. I already talked about when Harry brought Molly home and how he embraced her and loved her, and you know, you can just, his love just comes off the page. But also, Harry was so afraid to shake his hand in that scene. He was so afraid that Michael would sense that Lashiel is still there, still tormenting Harry, still making his shower water hot, and he didn't want Michael to know, because Michael is such a pure, kind-hearted, like devoted to goodness person, and he didn't want Michael to see him that way. I think that's some very good characterization, that he loves Michael enough that he's not going to lie to him, but he also cares enough about someone as good as Michael's perception of him that he just, not yet, don't know yet. Anyway, they do shake hands and nothing happens. And I knew, I knew Michael knew because it was built up. Like, obviously Michael, the handshake would have done something. It did nothing, which meant that Michael felt it, and he chose to say nothing. Now, I assumed that Michael found out in that scene and chose not to make it a thing in that moment because it wasn't the right moment, and because Harry clearly didn't want to tell him, and so he was just being respectful. But in fact, he's known the whole time. And he's just waited for Harry to say something about it. And even at the end of the book, Michael, clearly I'm not going off of chronological, I'm talking based on characters. Sorry, this is the formula, or the format that I've fallen into. I'm gonna keep going. Even at the end of the book, Michael tells Harry, I can help you with this. You know, we can get rid of this. You are gonna have to give up magic and it won't be a problem anymore. And Harry's like, yeah, that's not happening. So I guess I'm still demented. I'm still being tormented by this demon, by this fallen angel. Let's talk about Thomas next, because there's more I want to say about Michael, but let me get there. So Thomas too, again, character I always welcome in any book now, and didn't get a lot of page time, but the page time he got was good. So Harry is suspicious that Thomas has started feeding again based off of his demeanor and just a lot of things. It's obvious, and we eventually find out that yes, he is feeding again, and not only that, he's joined the Wild Hunt. So that's super fun. I love Thomas's presence when they do, after they put the goop on their eyes and they do go in and fight. I love Thomas's presence, because even though they're at odds in a lot of ways and they're going down very different paths, he never hesitates to fight alongside his brother. He always wants to have his brother's back. He always wants to be there for him and get in his business. He wants to get in his business about Murphy. He wants to protect those that Harry cares about. He wants to make sure that Harry's going to get through each thing okay. And I love Thomas for that. But I'm also concerned because we have that death curse on him. You're gonna die alone. And again, I don't know if that actually means you're gonna die alone, like everyone you love is going to die, or if that means like you're a wizard you're gonna die alone because you're gonna outlive everyone, or if it means, you know, you're gonna die in that alley over there and no one will hold your hand. I don't know the implications of it, but it is starting to look like he's gonna be kind of alone because Thomas has joined the Wild Hunt, which puts him at odds with Harry. Harry has Lashiel tied to him, which puts him at odds with Michael's mission. And also Michael mentioned in this book that he feels the end coming for him. Like, he's not going to stop. He's not going to stop fighting the good fight. But also he feels like he's going to die. So I guess Michael's going to die in this series. Not right now, hopefully, but eventually. Now we're also tied to Murphy. That's getting a little bit more murky. So that could get really messy really quickly, or I don't know. It's just starting to look more and more like the whole die alone thing could actually be coming up. So as far as Murphy goes, I'm glad how quickly Butcher is just handling things. Like when we started to get some build up that Harry might like Murphy, we just went ahead and, all right, next book. It's established, yes he does. Next book, he addresses it. It's not getting dragged out super long. So he did address it. He's like, what about us? And she said, no about us. I mean, she thought about it. She admitted that she likes him too. And then she was like, nah, it's not gonna work out. But then her work situation is about to change pretty drastically because, again, she put the goop on her eyes. She went in and she fought, and time runs different here, so she's been gone for too long, and now she's getting demoted. She's getting some big job penalties. Fun, enter office politics. I don't know if that means that she's not working with Harry anymore, so maybe their relationship can progress, or if she's going to keep that hard line that she drew, or what's going to happen here, but I feel like things got both clearer and more murky between them in this book. I would be thrilled if they just stayed platonic, personally. I love a good platonic friendship, but I'm also fine with them getting together. I like them. I like the two of them, so whatever. One more star of this book is Mouse, who's been the star. He was the star of one of the stars of last book as well, and same in this book. When he got hit by a car, I knew he wasn't dead. Even though Harry was running around shouting, "You killed my dog!" I knew Mouse wasn't dead because the scene was too quick. It was like, boom, you're hit, you're sprawled out on the concrete, Harry's running around shouting, "You killed my dog." Like, there wasn't enough mourning. I think that for a character that has established himself as being the goodest boy and deserving all the belly rubs, he would get a better death scene than that. I mean, I know it was high tension, high action, I get it, but still, there are rules to writing. And if your loyal, wonderful doggo dies, you cry a little bit more. So because the death scene was so quick, I knew it wasn't a death scene. And I was so happy when Mouse was back and we were fine and we were still moving. But he still played a great role, and he's such a good companion to Harry. I'm gonna be honest, when we first got to see Molly and he was growling at her and he was unsure about her, I was like, oh, why? What's going on? I don't trust you, Molly. I don't trust you. Like, I trust the dog more than I trust the character that I've known for several more books. Another scene that I really, really loved was in chapter 40. Let me see if I can pull it up. Once more I called upon the fire of summer had taken in. I could feel its intensity beginning to ebb, but if the fetch managed to slip away, I might never have such an opportunity again. Besides, that creature had tormented my friend's wife and daughter, nearly murdered them right in front of my eyes, and now it was going to answer for it. So I unleashed the fire again, this time so brilliant that it lit dark mountainsides 5 or 10 miles away, so hot that the blowing snow hissed into instant steam in the wake of the flame. When it struck the fetch, it detonated into a blinding configuration and an explosion that roared so loudly that it shattered every icy replica of a rose vine upon the parapet. This was so cool! I loved this scene. That's not even the scene I was just describing. I just, while I was skimming through chapters, I found it. And it was so good! That whole section of the book was just, I love it. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I found it. Ooh, no. Yeah, I found the guy that's just hanging there, crucified. He was still crucified and horribly rotted. My fire spells, as augmented by Lily's extraordinary power had melted the bonds around his left wrist, and now his left arm flopped bonelessly in the steady, howling wind. I had never seen human flesh so badly mangled. Ugh. Yeah, that scene was really sick. That scene was really twisted. Yeah, okay, so this is the scene that I was looking for. Slate's mouth dropped open. A maniacal little giggle bubbled under his reply. You're here. Thank goodness. You're here. I've been here so long. He tilted his head to one side, exposing his corroded artery. Free me. Do it quickly. Free you? I asked. From this, Slate sobbed, voice breaking. From this nightmare. Kill me. Kill me. Kill me. The cedar neighborhoods of my soul would have been happy to oblige him, but some dark, hard part of me wanted to see what else I could think of to make him suffer more. I just stared at him for a while, considering options. After perhaps 10 minutes, he dropped unconscious again. From somewhere to my right, a delirious voice, at once rough and silky, purred. You do not understand his true torment. There is pain, of course, but anyone can inflict pain. Accidents inflict pain. Pain is the natural order of the universe, and so it is hardly a tool meant for the queen of air and darkness. She tortures him with kindness. She leaves him hung up like that. Then she comes and saves him from it. She heals his wounds and takes his pain. She restores his sight, and the first thing his eyes see, is the face of she who delivers him from agony. She cares for him with her own hands, warms him, feeds him, cleans away the filth, and then she takes him to her bower. Poor man. He knows that when he wakes, he will hang blind upon the tree again, and can do naught else but long for her return. This scene is so sick. I mean, this is such a disgust, and it's supposed to be, that's the point. It is a slow seduction, a conversion by the smallest steps. Mab is sick. This is Leah who's telling us about this, and it's Mab who's done it. Like we already knew that Mab was twisted, but this is a haunting. And then along with that, in the same chapter, this is all chapter 39, Leah, so Harry wants to free Leah. And as soon as he says he's not leaving her, she starts choking and like goes through this huge range of emotions. She suddenly sagged, and then she turned her eyes back to me, and where my godmother stood again, part lust, one part cool, feline, indifferent, and one merciless predator. So like lots going on inside of her. And she's telling him, you must not free me. No, but you must free me. No, don't free me. And like, there's some twisted stuff going on in this whole chapter. I cannot be trusted. It's not time. I would not be able to fulfill my promise to your mother should you free me now. You must leave. So like this whole chapter and this whole section of the book is something that I thought was thrilling, exciting, confusing, crazy bonkers, but also a big part of why I felt like this book would be better on reread, because obviously there's stuff going on that's beyond my comprehension at this point in the story. And when you get the full context of what's going on with Leah, what this promise is, and what's going on in the fairy realm in general, once we get more, I'm sure I can re-look at this whole scene, this whole section of the book, and get very different results out of it. Right now it's causing a whole lot of twisted horror and also intrigue, but for those of you who've read through the series more than once, I'm sure you read through this the second time and see so much that I don't see. So I am looking forward to, if I don't reread the series someday, at least coming back to this book and revisiting certain scenes that I think with context I could get so much more out of. Anyway, let's talk about Molly now. So I love Molly. I think that her character type, the kid who's trying to grow up too fast, the kid that wants to be an adult, and so she dresses like one and acts like one and puts herself in situations like one, but, that also puts her in a lot of danger. I just have so much sympathy for this kid. Like, I just want to wrap her up, and I want to be like, I'm your auntie now. let me help you through life. Let me be run things by me, you know, like, I feel like I'm 31 years old, and when I have teen girls in my life, I'm always like, I'm your aunt. Let's talk. Let's work together. That's like the role I want to fulfill for young girls at this point in my life. So I see Molly, and I'm just like, come here. Just come here. So anyway, I feel for her because with her situation with her mom, she doesn't feel like she can go to her family when she starts displaying these, that, you know, she has a lot of magical talent, and she doesn't know her mom's history. She doesn't, like, if they had better open communication, then a lot could be different, but that's something that I get to learn from reading this. But she gets herself into a lot of trouble because, you know, she's a kid. She's a kid, man. I want to scoop her up. One of the things that she does that gets her into a lot of trouble is by trying to problem solve the situation with her friends, with their drug addiction, and trying to mind control them, essentially, to fix their drug addiction so that they won't, I don't remember her name, her one friend doesn't keep miscarrying so that she can keep the baby. And mind control is a no-no for obvious reasons. But again, she's a kid and she has no idea what she's doing. So I really love the complexity of this situation because, first of all, Harry soul gazes with her, and he can identify that, you know, she has a good heart and good intentions, and her goodness is still what leads her. But that doesn't change the fact that the darkness can overwhelm and the darkness can take her over, especially if she doesn't have a mentor, especially if she can't have Auntie Murphy, then I guess she can have Harry. If she doesn't have someone to come into her life and guide her and help her to control this and help her to, you know, grow up a little bit, then it's gonna turn bad for her. So he recognizes this and he wants to help her, partially because of his own past and his own experiences, partially because of his relationship to Michael and Charity, and partially because the White Council can't exactly be trusted. But it doesn't matter because she has to go to the White Council. I don't remember exactly what the conversation was in the book, when Harry tells Charity, I have to take her to the White Council. Ultimately, it's her choice, but if she doesn't get help, then she's going to potentially turn really dark, and she needs to go to the White Council so that this can be addressed and we can move forward, and she needs someone to advocate for her, and I'm going to be that someone. And Charity's like, no, like, no, you're not taking my daughter to those people, understandably so. And Charity started accusing him of having this ill intent and bad motives. And Molly, I don't remember exactly what the line was, but it was something along the lines of, what has Harry done to prove to you that he doesn't have our best interest at heart? What has he done to earn your distrust? And I loved that line, and I agree. You know, again, I can sympathize with Charity's position. She's wrong. And being called out on that and being like, look at his actions. Look at how much he's fought for us. Look at all that he's done for our family. So stop. You know, and it was great. It was a great scene. So anyway, she goes for the White Council. She goes to the meeting. They stand on the blood stain and they plead their case. And there's people that step in and kind of fudge the numbers a little bit to make Harry look a little bit more heroic than he actually was, and to look a little bit more, you know, try to sway things in his favor. And Molly still gets the sentencing. She's going to get executed. And this is I love the way this is all written, because this is a really complicated matter. This isn't so simple as, you're a kid, you messed up. No, like you twisted this kid's mind. I've forgotten his name again. Her boyfriend, Norton. Whatever. She twisted his mind so much that his consciousness most likely snapped. Like, he's potentially been altered because of what she did. So, like, justice for him, you know, if you accidentally maim someone, you still maimed them. You still have to, there still has to be a consequence for that. But also, she's a kid who didn't understand. I don't know, it's complicated. So I'm going through this with Harry and I'm thinking, gosh, this is really tough, because she did do genuine harm to people. Like, she did alter them irrevocably and, like, ruined one kid's life. So there should be justice for him. Like, there should be consequences for that. But also the White Council isn't the ones that we can trust to give justice. They're the ones that we can trust to exert their dominance. So it is like, it's a really complicated issue. And I love that I love that the book kind of depicts that this isn't easy. And I, the reader, am sitting here kind of trying to sift through all the details and all the implications. And I'm like, I don't know what the right answer here is. So I love that. But anyway, she's sentenced to execution too, but we're able to get around it. And now both of their lives are on the line, where it's like, okay, Molly, Harry, you're now Molly's mentor. If she screws up, you both die. So still with the political complications of, okay, the guy, whose name Merlin, didn't win, but also he's watching to see if he can win in the future, if he can get his way. Okay, I had to get a new memory card to finish this video because I've been talking for so long. So now let's get into the two issues, which are kind of connected in one thing. The two things that I didn't like about this book, who are both the relationship with Harry and Molly. So to be clear, because I don't think I've ever actually laid it out, I've actually explained it in the past. To be clear, I have no issue with the fact that the majority of the people in the Dresden Files world are crazy attractive. The thing is that Harry doesn't ever describe someone as, she's a bombshell, she's super hot, she's gorgeous, my goodness. It's almost always a dressing down kind of a description, like an undressing kind of description, where we're like, all right, let's start at the top and work our way down and describe everything in the most like objectifying kind of way. So it's not that everybody is hot, it's the way Harry describes them with like a stripping down kind of sense. And then it's also just that it's the same way all the time. So this happens a ton in the books, where yet another woman comes onto the scene and is, stripped down again by Harry's, like, in his mind. And it's just like the same way of describing things. So it's also just crazy repetitive. So it grates on me. I just think it's annoying. But in this book, when it starts getting directed at teens, I really hate it. So for instance, Molly's reintroduction into the story. There were miniature barbell-shaped bulges at the tips of her breasts, where the thin fabric emphasized rather than concealed them. I didn't want to know what else had been pierced. I know I didn't, because I told myself that very sternly. I didn't want to know, even if it was a little intriguing. But wait, that's still not all. She had a tattoo on the left side of her neck in the shape of a slithering serpent. I could see the barbs and curves of some kind of tribal design flickering out from the neckline of her tank top. Another design, whirling loops and spirals, covered the back of her right hand and vanished up under the sleeve of her jacket. She watched me with one eye arched, waiting for me to react. Her posture and expression both made an effort to say that she was too cool to care what I thought, but I could practically taste the uncertainty she was working to hide and her anxiety. My goodness, that was a long description of a teenager. So anyway, her introduction scene, she's a kid, she's a teenager, dressing up a lot older than she needs to be, and Harry notices. Now, there's nothing wrong with him noticing. He's seeing Molly for the first time in a long time, and the gut reaction of, what is, like, what are you wearing, child, is very reasonable. The descriptions of her nipple piercing, or tips of her breast piercings, and then the what else might be pierced, I don't want to know. I'm sure that I don't, right? Do I not want to know? I don't want to know. It's all very uncomfortable. And when I first read that, I was like, what's the goal, Butcher? Like, you're not making Harry look good with the way he's describing Molly right now. Now, I think I do understand the point now that I'm at the end of the book and I've seen, Molly presenting herself to him at the end. I think the point was just to make super duper clear that Molly is attractive and Harry notices, but is choosing to not notice. So that, at the end of the book, when Molly, who has been through a ton and who is feeling very vulnerable, and Harry is now her rescuer, and she's still trying to grow up too fast, now she drops her robe in front of Harry and presents herself to him naked. And Harry's response is to draw a very hard line and tell her, yeah, no, don't ever do that again. We're not even going to entertain this. Like I said, I'm sure this has been discussed plenty because I know that just the topic of the way Harry observes women throughout these books is highly talked about, or at least it is, again, it is in my comment sections. So I'm sure that this scene is plenty well discussed. So I'll give you my thoughts. I don't know how controversial it's going to be to say, but I have no issue with Harry dumping icy water all over her head in this scene. I think that what he had to do in this scene was absolutely draw a very strong and humiliating line here and let her know beyond a shadow of a doubt, this is not happening. And you will not try this again. Now, I wish Harry hadn't drawn the scene out so much. I think that a better hard line would have been for him, the moment she dropped her robe, for him to say, no, put it on, pick it up, throw it at her, and be like, don't you ever do that again. Like, he could have drawn the hard line. He could have, like, surprised her into, like, being a little bit humiliated and knowing, okay, I'm never drawing that again. He could have easily done that without drawing out the scene and making her think maybe something's gonna happen, only to then get the icy water dumped on her. I have no issue with the icy water because he needed to draw a hard line. I don't like that the scene went on as long as it did, and I guess here's the thing. Scenes like this, like the one that I just read, and like this one where she's presenting herself to him, they go on so long and unnecessarily so, and they're too detailed, in my opinion, for what they're trying to accomplish. When she drops her robe, he goes into describing her in great detail once again, the tattoo that ran down her and all the way down to her navel, exactly where the piercings are. I'm not going to describe it all because I personally am not interested in describing a naked teenager. But lines like this, Molly didn't have much experience for displaying herself before a man or in playing the coquette. She should have stood differently, arched her back, shifted her hips, worn an expression of thickly sensual interest, daring me to come after her. She would have looked like the patron goddess of corrupted youth. Okay, here's the thing. You can let us know that Molly is young and inexperienced and uncomfortable in this situation by telling us that her eyes looked vulnerable, that she looked nervous, that she stood with her shoulders hunched forward instead of rolled back in confidence. Like, there's ways to describe that she's inexperienced and not confident in the way she's presenting herself without saying, here's how this teenager should have looked sexy. Here's how she should have presented herself more sexually interesting. You see the difference between those two? So to me, I think Butcher's goal here was to show that Molly is trying to present herself as older than she is, and that she's putting herself in really vulnerable positions by doing this, and showing that she is an attractive person. And so Harry sees her presenting herself in these ways, and he has confusing feelings about it. Like, he knows, I watched you grow up. I should not be noticing any of this about you. And so I'm choosing to go la 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 la. Like, that's fine. And then at the end of the book, when she presents herself to him and he draws a hard line and he's like, put the robe back on, kid. Don't ever do this again. That's great. But it's the framing of the scenes where it's like, okay, let's strip her down. Like, let's observe her whole body and describe it all and describe what she should do to be more sexy. And then we'll address it. Like, I actually think that the conversation of Harry being like, I feel conflicted and weird about this whole situation and I don't know what to do about it and I just need to draw a hard boundary right now. I think that that could be handled really well, and I think that that could be a really interesting piece of this book. But because of the way it's written in a way that I think is not. It's written in a way that ends up sexualizing the teenager before drawing the hard line, that I think was a big misstep. I think that this is a nuanced thing. I think it's not as simple as this should not have been in the book, or as simple as everybody's overreacting, this is perfectly fine. Like, I don't think it's any of that. I think that it's pretty nuanced, and that there are ways that this could have been done in a way that is honest and interesting and shows flaws, but also shows progress. But because I don't think that this is Butcher's strong suit, is to handle something like this, it ended up reading really uncomfortably. That's my take on it. So those were the two really big road bumps for me, is Molly's introduction and that final scene between Molly and Harry, just because of the way they were written. Not because I don't think they should have been in the book. Not because I don't think Molly should be acting this way, or that Harry should have weird, uncomfortable feelings about it. Like, what am I supposed to do in this situation? This is out of my comfort zone and I don't know, I don't like it. Like, I think that's all fine. It's the way it was written, I think, was a big fumbling of what could have been an interesting part of the book. All that said, now I'm really excited that Harry's mentoring Molly. Like, I'm really excited about this because Molly, I love her character. Harry, I love his character. And the idea of this young girl who's she's in a very tender age and she has a ton of raw natural potential. She has a ton of power, but there's also huge risks, and she's already harmed people with this power. And then you have Harry, who has a genuine heart, who wants to help her and could potentially train her up to be a better wizard and to also grow up a little bit as a person. I think that this dynamic could be awesome. I think it could be terrible too. So we'll see if we're gonna keep going in the same direction that we went in this book, if we're gonna have the same really uncomfortable dynamics that I don't think Butcher writes well between these two characters. I don't know what I'm gonna do, honestly, because I really don't like the way Butcher executed these scenes in this book, even though I think that the scenes themselves aren't the problem. I think the execution, I didn't appreciate at all. So if we're gonna keep doing that, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to tell you, because that's gonna be hard for me. But if we're done with that, if the hard line that Harry drew is the end, and now that he's said, we're having none of that, don't do that again, and then she respects that boundary, and then they can move forward as mentor and mentee, then I'm thrilled. Like, I think this is gonna be awesome. So I guess we'll just see what comes next. One last thing, Ebenezer and Harry do reconnect at the end of this book, which I think is great, because I like that we've had a couple of books of friction, a couple books of Harry feeling betrayed and pulling back from him, and now potentially we're going to start repairing that relationship. I like that characters and relationships are constantly moving in this series. I think we've been given enough time of them being on the rocks for them to start working towards rebuilding that, so I think that's great. And I think this is long enough. There's so much to discuss in these books, and I don't want to just tell you, okay, plot point, plot point, plot point. You know, like I want to talk through some of these scenes, which just makes these reviews so stupidly long. So, cheers. Let's talk more in the comments. I'll see you on Tuesday.